Welcome to Mega Gaming, and this is the second review of the day, and it is going to be based on the PC version of a game I just reviewed, Blades of Steel for MS-DOS for the IBM PC compatible. I can tell you this, it was supposedly developed by Konami and published by Konami, but it definitely doesn't have the charm of the original version. To be honest, I would pick up the Game Boy version before this, and apparently there was a Commodore 64 and Amiga release. Commodore 64 in North America and Amiga in Europe. I haven't played those, but I can't imagine they are any worse than this one. Okay, so we have it in CGA graphics. There's also EGA. And you'll notice right off the bat, despite being about a year and a half newer, it definitely doesn't show it. It looks like an MS-DOS port of a Nintendo game is what it really looks like. It's lacking a lot of lacking the digitized voices. You still get the same team, same leagues, all those features. Where the problem arises is playing the game. Whether, first off, you can play it with a keyboard, or you can play it, but it's still better with a gamepad. But it is much choppier gameplay, regardless of what you use to play. I didn't run any analysis tools on it. It seems to be running at a lower frame rate. And perhaps this is because I'm running in DOSBox, but I even tried. Hey, I looked up reviews of this game from the past, and it's similar things were discussed as far as the gameplay goes for this game. It is PC speaker sound, which really isn't that big of an issue. It doesn't have the charm of the NES game as far as sound effects go, but that's not a deal breaker with a game like this. This is a retro arcade sports game. Problem is the controls and the choppiness of the game takes away what made the original game in the arcade and on the NES and even the Game Boy version so much fun. Besides being able to play with other people, it was because it was fluid and responsive, fast-paced. With this one, you can play 2 players. You can share a keyboard. You can do one person keyboard, one person joystick. Or even people on separate joysticks. But it just doesn't control all that well. If I was back in 1990, wanted a hockey game for the PC, I didn't have a Nintendo, I played Blades of Steel at my friend's house, enjoyed the game, this would be enough to kind of scratch that itch at the time. I wouldn't be terribly happy with the game. Definitely wouldn't say it was one of my best games even back then. But it would at least has enough of a Blades of Steel feel to it where at the time it wouldn't have been a completely unplayable substitution. But a lot of time has passed, and as far as with the numerous different hockey games you can play, either simulation or arcade or something in between, and this one it's much like the Double Dragon games on the PC and a lot of other PC ports of games at the time. He might have been that game fundamentally. It looked like it sort of, and it sort of had the same content. But it just didn't play properly, and when the gameplay was the whole focal point of the game, makes it very hard to especially going back to this, having not had the DOS version back then, having only had the NES version, makes it a very difficult game to play. However, I am going to judge it as a game in its own right, and if this was the only Blades of Steel that was ever released, nobody would be singing the praises they do about Blades of Steel, that's for sure. There's still worse hockey games out there, most definitely, including modern releases, I would say, that are worse than this game. But this is pretty bottom of the barrel. So where do I rate it on our list? Blades of Steel for MS-DOS. I am going to put it, this is a tough one, I'm going to give it a I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 10 and put it right below Demon's Stone and right above Jaws for the NES. There is an underlying game here that would have been fun in small doses back then, and you could even make it fun now if you're playing against somebody else. But if you actually got this for the single player experience, even back then it wouldn't have been all that enjoyable unless you just really loved hockey and wanted some hockey game for the computer. The CGA graphics are well done enough where you can tell what's going on, though. It has the basics of an MS-DOS game at that time, where it's just barely enough to be, had you picked this up for a few dollars in a bargain bin, it would have been worth the price back then. Now, unless you wanted just something that's a bit of a novelty, having an oddball version of Blades of Steel in your collection, I definitely can't recommend revisiting this version. Hope you enjoyed the review. Please like, subscribe, and if you had positive experiences with this game back in the day, let me know. I'd love to hear how people's experiences were that actually played the game at the time. Had I played it at the time for MS-DOS, I'm sure that it probably would have scored a bit higher due to nostalgia influencing the score. But without the nostalgia and knowing that there's better versions out there of this game, I just can't recommend it. Have a great day.